welcome back for another ASMR video. Today we're going to be doing a book slash poetry ASMR with a poet who I really like named Saadi. Some of the other poets that I really like from ancient Persia are Rumi and Hafez as well. But this book here is very colorful and has a lot of beautiful blues, reds, yellows, and has some very beautiful language, metaphors, and romance. But in particular, this book is sort of a book of poems with moral stories. So he kind of has a lesson with each one, in this particular book especially. But that all said, he's writing around the 1200s during the Mongol invasion. So that's sort of the window into the period that he's looking from, or experiencing reality from. So I think that with that knowledge, reading through these, we can learn some lessons ourselves, and also just appreciate the beautiful language that comes from ancient voices. Why don't we go ahead and take a seat over at the bench here, and we can zoom in a little bit closer and see if we can learn something. Alright, well, let's go. Take a seat over here. Come on. Okay, so here we have our book right here. And as you can see, it says an album from Gulistan of Saadi. Morals pointed and tales adorned. And this is just the cover, but you can see here there's just so many beautiful colors, blues and reds. But why don't we go ahead and open the book up, and we can investigate it further. So I think there are English translations in the book, but unfortunately I can't read Farsi, but we will read a few of the tales and just flip through some of the pages and look at the artwork and things like that. So let's go ahead and open this up here. This is the actual book right here. So you can see here it says morals pointed and tales adorned. But we'll move this casing here, and we can just open the book up and see if we can finally put this over here. So let's begin. So the first an album from Gulistan of Saadi, morals pointed and tales adorned. So I think this is from, I want to say 1997, this book. For Saadi, as for virtually every major figure in classical Persian literature, solid biographical information in any appreciable amount is virtually non-existent. The lack is the more serious in this case, however, in view of two important considerations. First, that Saadi is clearly an interesting personality living through exceedingly eventful times. So, this mentions the Crusades and the Mongol invasion, so it was a very transitional period at that time. But well, that sort of explanation just the basic history of what was happening during that period, but let's go ahead and turn to our first anecdote, which is looks like it involves sort of a religious parable here, but I saw the son of a wealthy man sitting beside the grave of his father, and was arguing with the son of a friar, pointing out, "The sarcophagus of my father's mausoleum is of stone, and the commemoration lines on it are very rich and cultured. It is paved with marble and adorned with turquoise in the shape of bricks. But what about your father's grave? What does it look like? It consists of 2 adjacent bricks with 2 handfuls of clay put on top of it." The son of the friar listened to all of these, and said, "By the time your father pushed back all those cumbersome stones which are on top of him, mine is already in paradise. A donkey with a light cargo without doubt walks more easily. A friar who carries only the burden of poverty will also arrive more lightly at the entrance of eternal rest, but he who lives in merry-making, wealth, and leisure will without doubt on all accounts die hard, because a prisoner who escapes from all the chains is considered more happy than a seigneur taken into prison, although he is still a seigneur." So, that's some pretty wise words in my opinion, and still applicable today, of course. Look at this artwork here. I think this is very beautiful. This looks like I'm not sure what this scene is of. I think the Farsi is there, but you can see it has these really beautiful, brilliant colors, and golds and blues, which I think is very common in Persian culture. So. This is a very beautiful scene here too. It can almost bring you back to those times in ancient Persia. And during these times, that was actually one of the great regions of the world in terms of, it was the center of enlightenment and culture at that time. And that changed, of course, over time. But a lot of these parables, like this one says, "I saw a schoolmaster in Mauritania." And so a lot of them do have an international sort of a feel to them. And I think that's a reflection of what was happening in the region at that time. So the Mongol invasion was taking place, and the Crusades. And if you could just close your eyes and really imagine yourself in that place at that time, and imagining these people coming from all over the world. There's no phones, internet, or TV, or any way to communicate quickly, and it would almost feel like, in a way, almost like aliens are coming down, out of just nowhere, and it would be a scary feeling. I think there's a history of globalization that is unexplored to its fullest extent, but I just try to imagine how it would feel emotionally to experience all these things during these kind of periods in time. This is very beautiful artwork here. I'm going to read the last part here because it's very beautiful. I'm just going to read this one here. A king put his son in a school, putting on his lap a silver slate, with this inscription in golden letters: "The severity of a teacher is better than the love of a father." can see, here's some beautiful artwork right here. The colors are just very brilliant, and just very amazing to imagine what this must have been like back in those times. So here's another interesting one here. Once turmoil set in Damascus, everyone took flight. Learned sons of peasants became the ministers of the kings. Spoiled sons of ministers went as mendicants to peasants. I just love the colors, and the pages themselves have a nice aged feel, because it is, I mean, I guess time flies, but 1997 is 20 odd years ago. I like this one here with the flowers and some of this imagery here. Oh wow, this is really, really beautiful right with this golden trim here. Sorry if the reflection is a little bad there, but as you can see here, this is like gold with robes here. Well, actually, maybe we can read this one. But it does kind of have a Moses sort of look. This is interesting here. I fled from men to mountain and desert, wishing to attend upon no one but God. I imagine how I am feeling at this moment. Now I must make myself satisfied with living in a pigsty with villains. The feet in chains with friends is better than to be strangers in a garden. Here in this scene. Does a really good job just illustrating the anecdotes. Here, let's see this one. This one's kind of interesting. When one of a tribe has done a foolish thing, no honor is left either to the low or the high. Don't you see how one ox of the pasture defiles all oxen of the village? When a person of low intelligence makes a rude remark, the soul of intelligent men are much grieved by that remark. When a task is filled with rose water, a dog falling into it pollutes the whole. Now, this is interesting. Safety is in solitude. It says at the top right here. So it's very interesting philosophies here. I think it does reflect some of the Islamic teachings you see. So it is consistent. But with Persian culture, I think you do see Zoroastrianism mixed into this. And that's kind of an interesting thing as well. You can see the scene here with the blues and the leaves here, and the Farsi script is beautiful. or Arabic script, excuse me. This one's about a Chinese slave girl, so it's kind of just, again, it just shows you the extent of the global trade during that time, and we know the Silk Route was going through all these regions, so that, obviously makes sense as well. Wow. Well, I hope these colors can come through in my color grading, but they are really fantastic. And I think you do see these color schemes with flowers and things like that in Asian art, especially in Middle Eastern, like in Iran, things like that. Excuse me, I sort of bent the page there. Let's see here. We'll read another anecdote or two. That's a bit of a long anecdote right there. And, whenever I do see this type of scenery, it does give it a very enlightened feeling to it. I think it was a period where it was this kind of the center of the world in a lot of ways. And a lot of the scientific discoveries we have today also kind of originated during this period in this region. So, something to consider. Here's an interesting one. He who washes his hands of life says whatever he has in his heart. When a man is in despair, he is impertinent, like a vanquished cat assailing a dog. In an emergency, when escape is not possible, the hand grasps the blade of a sharp sword. Interesting. That's a bit of a graphic depiction there. So it has that old book smell, which I really love. It's kind of been, it came with my, it came actually from Iran, so it's been through a lot, and it's sort of been sitting in the library. So that might be the end right there. But let's take a look at this beautiful sort of snowflake of flowers and blue. I don't know what it says in the center, but you do see this design in a lot of the mosques over there, and it's a very fascinating design in my opinion. Those are just sort of extra pages here. Let's read through one more of these and just so we can get our fill of wisdom. Let's see here. Here's one. We'll read through this and then we'll call it a night. Okay, so I found a good one here. A friar who had denounced all the worldly possessions and was a mental state of self-satisfaction was sitting somewhere in a desert where a king happened to pass by. Because he had satisfied himself with things as they were, he did not need to humble himself to gain any favor from anyone. So he took to no notice of the king. The king, in accordance with his royal position, became angry and said, "This group of rag-wearing people are like animals." The high official said to the friar, "The supreme ruler on earth passed you by. Why haven't you paid any homage and not shown any good manners?" He replied, "Tell the king a man who expects favor from him will pay him homage. In addition, the kings exist for the protection of the subjects. The subjects do not exist for their obeying the kings. The king is the protector of destitute and poor, even though he has glory and wealth. The sheep is not for the sake of the shepherd, but the shepherd for the sake of the sheep. Today you see one man prosperous and another burdened with grief because of laboring and struggling in life. Wait a while. You will see dead the one who was greedy and impossible thought of being forever as he was, and his brain, which bore many hallucinations, is being consumed by earth. Distinction between king and slave has ceased when they are dead. If a man were to open the tombs of the dead, he would not distinguish a rich man from a poor man." The king, who was pleased with the way of thinking of the friar, asked him to make a request, but he answered that the only one he had to make was to be left alone. The king then asked for advice, and the friar said, "Help and do good things while wealth is in your hand. That fortune and that kingdom is temporary. It will change hands from one person to another." So, that was a really beautiful message as well. So that sort of concludes our reading of the album of Gulistan of Saadi, and I definitely will revisit some other Persian poets at another time, but this book was very beautiful, and I thought it would be really fun to go through it, so I really appreciate you joining me, and I hope that you have a really, really fantastic evening, and I'll see you in the next video. Good night.